Welcome, everyone. It's good to see you. I guess I'm not actually not seeing you, but you're seeing me. But I'm grateful to be here. My name's Derek Duncan, and welcome to the third edition of Getting Answers. One of the things that we're trying to do here is encourage public dialogue and discourse. It's always frustrating to me that sometimes we can't have an honest conversation about really important things and important matters. And this is our attempt to just have that honest, humble conversation and talk about things that affect us all, to answer any questions that you might have about God, about the reality of life, purpose, meaning, those kinds of things, the nature of truth. It's all fair game. And so we're glad to be here. I'm glad to be joined always with my friend and cohort, Julian Morin.
Hi.
Hey, Julian, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Yeah.
Excited about today.
Good. Me too. All right. Well, I like to kick things off with a little trivia because, the school teacher, the mom, and me, I can't help it. So this week's coffee cup, don't guess just yet. So I'm going to show everybody here at home this coffee cup and see if you can guess where it's coming from. So I see a cowboy boot,
An oil rig.
old rig. How do you say old?
Earl.
Earl? Ugh.
I would say maybe Texas, Oklahoma. How about Oklahoma?
Oklahoma?
Or, yeah, that's my guess.
Oklahoma. All right, let's see. All right, John King has joined us. Hi, John. What do you think? Where do you think this coffee cup's from? Pastor Derek says, Oklahoma, where the wind goes. Pastor Derek, you are correct.
Sweet.
Oklahoma. Oh, no, there's my lipstick mark. Don't judge me, guys.
Oh, that would have helped too with the thundercloud and the tornado kind of
Yeah,
thing.
there's a buffalo there.
Yeah,
Have you ever been to Oklahoma?
I have. I lived there for 5 years.
Oh, that's right. I
Oklahoma
knew that.
City.
I knew that.
It's a great state, great people.
John King guessed Texas. I'm sorry, John King. Close, but no cigar. Oklahoma. So what was, did you see any crazy weather out there in Oklahoma?
I did.
Yeah.
Saw a couple of bad tornadoes that rolled through and just flattened neighborhoods where all it was just slabs of concrete left. Everything else was gone.
Wow.
The power of those things is devastating.
Yeah, that
Very,
sounds
very
crazy.
scary.
That is scary. I lived in Indiana for a little while, and I remember I had a Sebring convertible because I was fancy.
Wow.
And so I had my convertible, and I remember looking out, and I got a text from my friend who said, you got to get home, the weather's scary. So I looked on one side, and it was like beautiful, bright blue skies, and I looked on the other side, it was like black. And I didn't take it that seriously, growing up in Massachusetts, I'd never seen a tornado, so. But anyways, we were safe, but
Yeah.
they said, no, that was dumb of you to be driving around, taking your time, looking at the sky.
Yeah, it's a scary thing. You got to respect it for sure.
Yeah. All right. So, yeah, we've got a few people joining us. We've got Kristen Smith joining us. How you doing, Kristen?
Hey, Kristen. Good to see you.
Miss you. And then Jennifer White's joining us. She's saying, hi, everyone.
Hey, Jenny.
Hey, Jenny. All right. So, Derek, why don't you talk to us a little bit about what we do here and just a little bit more in case people are just joining us right now on what Getting Answers is and what your kind of vision for this kind of video podcast is. And
Yeah.
then we'll jump into today's topic.
Yeah, I mentioned it real quick earlier, but I really desire to help you answer questions that are bothering you. One of the things that I enjoy in life is sort of doing triage with people, like sorting out what's going on in your life, what questions do you have, where do you want to go, what do you want to do. I can't guarantee I always have the answers, but I really enjoy the process of talking and discussing and those kinds of things. Specifically, we're trying to help you understand who God is and how you can know him personally, how you can have purpose and meaning in life and those kinds of things. So we definitely come from a bias of a belief in God. But yeah, that's why we're here. We're trying to do this as authentically as we can. And so if I don't know something, I'll tell you I don't know, and I'll find out. There's a lot of people that are smarter than me, so I'll depend upon others. Speaking of a smart man, I wanted to introduce today's time talking just a little bit about Christopher Hitchens. If you don't know that name, the late Christopher Hitchens, he was a phenomenal writer, author, teacher. He's written a lot of books. He was a profound atheist, but I loved reading his work because it was so eloquently and passionately done. And one of the things that he struggled with. If you want to get a flavor for who he is, he wrote a book called God Is Not Great, where he really kind of blames God and religion for all the problems in the world. He makes some very, very convicting points where religion has let us down and let people down. But I primarily am not talking about a religious system. I'm talking about a personal God and how he revealed himself to us through his son, Jesus Christ. So a little bit of a difference, but atheists like Hitchens and Dawkins and others, they struggle with the issue of morality in terms of why we have it and where does it come from. So I thought we'd just explore that issue a little bit today. Morality, sort of the inherent thing that's built into us of wanting to do good or even recognizing the difference between good and bad, is something that's mysterious. So where does it come from? I believe morality comes from an absolute standard, an objective standard. In this particular case, it comes from God. Genesis 1:1 says, in the beginning, God. Basically, God created everything that we know out of nothing. I know with my grandson, I can create a Lego model with actually something and instructions, but I can't create it out of thin air. God creates everything that we know. Basically, he started it out of thin air, and he's always been, is the uncaused cause. He's always been there, and he's the absolute perfect standard of what is right and wrong, what is just and unjust. And so in order to have morality, a sense of good, a sense of evil, you have to have something to measure it against, and I believe that standard is God. Without God, I don't think there's any logical reason to have morality. And I know you could probably say, hey, I'll set the standard of what's good. We can figure that out as a society or as an individual. But I beg to differ, and I don't know all you who are listening, but I don't trust you enough to set the standard, because what's good for you might not be good for me. For example, for the good of the German nation, Hitler and everyone, they tried to extinguish the Jews. They thought that they were socially inferior or a mark against the human race. You could call it modern day eugenics or anything like that in those kinds of movements, but it was good for them to exterminate Jewish people. And obviously that was a travesty, and the genocide was awful. So you got to be careful saying I can define good, because I don't trust you to necessarily do that. And you probably shouldn't trust me either. Good is usually what's good for myself and not necessarily for you. So there's got to be something outside of ourselves that's objective. And I believe that standard is God. And because God exists, in my belief, he sets the standard of what morality is. And when it says in Genesis, again, chapter 1, verse 27, that God created all things in his image, he created us, specifically human beings, in the image of himself. I believe part of that is he's imprinted upon us a sense of right and wrong, a sense of good and evil. People say, well, why does evil exist sometimes? And I wish it didn't. But honestly, if evil didn't exist, you couldn't have good either, because by definition, you couldn't even define and discover what evil is. So I believe that God imprints upon us this sense of morality. He gives us free will, and he gives us the ability to exercise that morality. It comes from God, and we do our best. I'm not saying that it's impossible to be a good person if you're not a follower of Christ, but I am saying that it's impossible to be long-term righteous and perfect in what you do, because you're broken just like I am, and we need something outside of us to help us be unbroken. We need something that's revealed to us that's truth and greater than ourselves, and that's, again, the person of Jesus Christ and what he's done for us.
That's awesome. I'm gonna jump in here for a second, Pastor Derek. We've got some new people joining us this week, and so we'll say hi to them and get back into our topic. So we've already said hi to Jenny and to Kristen. Hayes has joined us. He said, hi, Pastor Derek and Jillian. It's so good to see you. God bless you. It's Jasa and Ed.
Oh, that's great. Hey, guys. Miss you guys.
Miss you guys. Hope you're feeling well. Hope you're that you're in good health, and that your kids are staying sane, and that you are with your kids.
Yep.
I've got a few former students that are joining us. Rosemary. She's so sweet. Hi. She's actually, her profile picture is from her graduation, where we took a picture together.
Hey, Rosemary, welcome.
My friend Mary's joined us. She said, I know this is now totally off topic, but she said she likes the lipstick on my coffee cup. So
kind of weirds me out.
weirds you out?
Yeah, it's germ kind of stuff. Like, I don't know.
It's kind of gross now because I keep like going back to different spots. We gotta keep it real though, you know. Susie Harper has a message for you.
Hey, Susie, how are you?
Ready to hear a message?
Sure.
I love this guy, best pastor ever. You guys are so lucky to have him.
Wow, you guys are sweet. Make sure you say hi to Andy and everybody, and I miss seeing you guys a lot.
Maybe we could forward this to the elder board so I can see how. You know?
Sure. Yeah, I could use all the positive publicity I can get. That'd be great.
My friend Stella, who's in Brazil, says, "Hi, Jill. Hi, Pastor Derek. Happy to participate today. I think she missed us the last time and or jumped in right at the end, so she's happy to join us live from YouTube right now." And then in Portuguese, he wrote, "Jill diz para o pastor que eu admiro muito, gosto da tranquilidade dele pregando a palavra de Deus." So she said, "Jill, tell your pastor that I admire him so much. I like the tranquility, so like the peaceful way that he's preaching the word of God."
That's really sweet. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Stella is such a strong woman of God. We met on my YouTube channel, and before the whole virus hit and everything, we were making plans for me to go down to Brazil and do kind of this youth women's thing, and it didn't all come together, but the connection there is great, and I'd love to. She's in the northeast part of Brazil in a spot called Natal, which is like Natal, like Christmas, but I don't think it snows there. I've heard it's one of the most beautiful places to visit in Brazil, though.
That's awesome.
All right, so getting back to the topic of morality, you know, as you were talking about it, I couldn't help but think about, I mean, maybe it's not connected, but I couldn't stop thinking about it, so here we go. I was thinking about all the different opinions that people have about anything, about, about politics. Right now, the big topic for me being connected with the public school system is whether to go back to school in person or not. You know, are we doing remote? Are we doing in person? And just, you know, how to handle this. And if people, I see a lot of division and a lot of people like, I'm angry at you because you don't believe the same thing I do. And so you must not care about kids, or you must not care about health. And then the opposite, some people are being insensitive and maybe they're not being as mindful as they need to be. But it's, if we assign, you know, what's right and what's wrong, like we really don't know for some of these things. So if we just assume that, well, what I'm feeling and what I'm experiencing is right, or what I'm experiencing is wrong, it kind of gets murky. So what do you do when you have a topic like this? Go to school or don't go to school, or vote this way or that way. Maybe we won't go down the politics. Let's keep it about school. But how do you handle that? You know, whether you're a believer and a Christian or whether you're not, and this is all new to you, how do we kind of sort that out?
Sure. Yeah, a couple of thoughts for you. One of the things that breaks my heart is sometimes we can't even talk about things that are controversial. You know, like I'm out playing golf. I'm with 3 or 4 guys, and I say that I'm a Christian and I'm a pastor, and it's like the conversation stops. You know, and I'm immediately judged as a hateful, bigoted person or whatever, just because what they assume I believe and what we stand for, those kinds of things. And so somehow we've got to be able to talk with people about things with respect and honor versus emotion and hatred and anger, because it really hinders the ability to come to a rational understanding of one another. And so typically, like an issue of homeschool or in-person school, video, non-video, whatever, to me, we have to have the humility and awareness that there's probably no one answer for that particular issue.
Yeah.
And I divide issues in life and questions in life into terms of essential and non-essential. And I'm not saying that schooling your kids is non-essential. It's just in terms of just its value and importance. It's very, very important. But I believe that dictating one way to educate kids is wrong. You know, because I think that there's different situations for different people. There's different types of schools. There's Christian schools, public schools. I'm a big public school fan, and I admire all the work that the teachers do. So it's somehow we got to enter into these conversations with humility and not be real judgy and mean-spirited and say, I'm the only one that knows how to do this, and if you don't want to do this way, you're wrong. So if I can delineate what's an important essential issue from not, then I can talk about it a little bit more clearly. So,
Yeah.
so an example, I believe God exists, and I believe that He's the objective standard to gauge what's true and what's not, where our morality comes from, where it doesn't, because He created us that way. And to me, that God is the creator is an essential issue. Now, how long God took to create the earth, and whether He used different biological theories, evolution, whatever. I've got my opinion on that, but I say clearly, here's my opinion. I'm not speaking the absolute truth.
Yeah.
But my important issue on creation, for example, is that God did it,
Yeah.
not how He did it or
Yeah.
how long it took. So if I can take that perspective on some of these issues, I can dialogue better. I can actually be productive in talking with people. It's a beautiful thing that God gave us a free will and gave us the ability to make choices, have differences of opinion, speak different languages, all those kinds of things, because we can learn from each other and we can be better people in general in a pretty broken world if we would just talk and cooperate. But it's somehow getting past that emotion, I'm right, you're wrong,
Yeah.
kind of an idea, and being able to discuss it openly and honestly, I think is what's most important.
Yeah. So before coming to chapel, I was a high school teacher, and the first 5 or 6 years I was teaching English as a second language, and then my last 4 or 5 years I was teaching biology. And it was funny because people would, well, how can you wrap your mind? How can you preach evolution? But like, if we get into the details of it, yeah, everything I was teaching goes along with the fact that we have a perfect creator. And so it was tricky. Sometimes people would want to rope me into, the debate of evolution or not evolution. I'm like, well, evolution is change over time. And, I try to keep the main thing, but
Right.
it can be tricky. Sometimes I feel like people want to debate or want to push what they believe maybe more than having that dialogue. And so sometimes it's wise to not engage in those conversations. I'm sure you must run into that.
Yeah, every once in a while I have somebody get really angry and yelling at me. Not too often, honestly. You think maybe it would happen more. What I fear happens most of all is people just pull away and disengage rather than just trying to talk. They assume Christians believe a certain way, and they're not going to have any tolerance for other people. And tolerance is it's a great word, but you got to understand that tolerance has no meaning unless you disagree with someone about something.
Yeah.
And so it's actually okay to disagree, and therefore tolerance works because you disagree, not because everyone's the same and believes everything that's the same.
Yeah.
So again, I try to do these gymnastics of essential issues, non-essential issues. I try to bring in a sense of humility and honesty about what I think and believe. And for me, one of the essential beliefs is how God has revealed Himself to us through Jesus Christ and through the Bible. And I believe the Bible is true and authoritative and inerrant in all of its different writing styles and genres and those kinds of things. And so I believe what it says, but I take a posture though because of humility, because not everybody understands the Bible and not everybody understands God's intention and His heart to want to know you and to help you in life and those kinds of things. Like I grew up for whatever reason with a picture of God being an angry old man that was sort of rooting against me. Couldn't wait to tell me He told you so. I told you so when you screwed up and did something wrong. But He's not really that way. We're trying to think about a being that's greater than anyone that's ever existed and will exist from an anthropomorphic way, sort of an image of our own fathers or our own relationships that we have. And that's pretty inherently flawed. But we're just doing our best in our humanness to grasp what's difficult to understand. And that's why the Bible is so important, because it reveals the heart of who God is and gives us that sense of, morality, like we just started talking about today. It's an objective standard outside of ourselves.
Yeah.
It's not something self-perceived or self-generated.
Right. Josh King, not Josh King, John King has a comment here for us. It says, I think this is an example. A threefold revelation of God as creator, judge, and savior requires He present in His holiness. I'm going to turn up my microphone a second. He present in His holiness an absolute morality, conviction, and faith in us accepts it. Conviction and faith in us. So a threefold revelation of God as creator, judge, and savior requires he presents in his holiness an absolute morality. Conviction and faith in us accepts it.
No, that's good. It's a good way to simplify it and say it. And again, if you're an atheist and you don't believe in God, then I think the logical next step for you is you don't believe in morals. I mean, because if morality comes from an objective standard, which is God and He's perfect, you don't have a perfect standard by which to create your own morals. So you'd be better off just saying all behavior, all morality is relative, and it's based upon the situation of the person, which is a really, really scary way to live. I mean, I think we'd be hard pressed to say it's okay to abuse and hurt innocent children. I mean, I'd hope that everyone would have some sort of understanding or awareness of a conscience that God has given us, that we would agree that that's wrong.
Yeah.
But if you really take logically your not believing in an ultimate God or a standard, you really could say that that's okay, and you probably should logically, because you can't. If there's no God, there's no morality, and then people could just do whatever they want, and that doesn't ring true in our hearts if we're honest.
Yeah.
Or in our experience.
I've seen this. Man, I wish I could remember what it was. Maybe I can link it up in the comments later. But there's this great evangelist that go all over the place. I think he's from South Africa, and he goes on asking people questions. Okay, is there right and wrong? And he starts off with this route of morality, and then he gets, a little more. Okay, is it okay to abuse children? Well, no. Well, why? And it's, that's where he really presents that there is a standard.
Yeah.
And that standard can't be, whether we're good or not. There's got to be something outside of us that sets that standard.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the verses that I don't like in Scripture is in Jeremiah, where it talks about our hearts are deceitfully wicked and beyond repair. I mean, I like to think I have a good heart, but in reality, my heart's just like yours, and the evil that can come into our hearts is pretty disturbing sometimes if we're honest about it. So we need something outside of us to give us a new heart, and the new heart is Christ and transforming who we are, and His righteousness enables us to be righteous where we couldn't do it on our own.
Yeah.
So those kinds of ideas are really, really important to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So you say you're not perfect.
Sure.
Right? Mm-hmm. So what are some things that you get hung up on that might be different than someone else? I'm not asking you to share your deepest, darkest secrets, but in terms of, we all struggle with different things. What's something that you as a pastor, people might think of you as, well, you must be a very moral man because you're in this position of leadership, but what's something that you struggle with that anybody else might struggle with as well?
I mean, an easy one for me would be pride. I mean, look, I'm obviously really handsome, and it'd be easy to be prideful about. I can't even get it out with a straight face. No, but I'm joking a little bit, but we have a tendency, and I do, to be egocentric on everything, and I make everything about me when I should be living for the betterment of others. My wife and I have this joke that we discuss when we're talking about something. She'll be sharing something, and then I'll share something, and I'll put it in my context. And she's like, "When did this conversation become about you?" And I always say, "Well, most everything's about me, And if people were more like me, the world would be a better place." Yeah. So I have all these kinds of thoughts, but I'm teasing with you a little bit. But yeah, I mean, just pride, self-sufficiency. I don't need help. I can do things on my own. Fear and anxiety, we talked about that in our first episode. I struggle with those things. A hard one for me in my life has been people pleasing. I mean, we could probably do a whole
we probably both have a lot to talk about.
Because you want people to like you, and that's not an inherently evil thing. But after a while, if you live for the likes of other people, you sort of lose who you are as an individual, and you don't have any boundaries, and it causes a lot of resentment and fear and those kinds of things. So, yeah, I'm pretty much like everybody else. One of the things I try to do in my ministry is just be honest about the things I'm struggling with, because, not because I'm trying to relate. I mean, I am, but I'm trying to be normal. I'm growing and learning just like you guys are.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping to grow in my ability to understand who God is, and we're on the journey, together.
Yeah. So circling back to the overall topic of morality, what do we label this? Morality and where it comes from. Would you mind kind of doing another kind of quick recap of what's on your mind, and maybe why this is on your mind, and why it is that you chose this topic to talk about this week, and just kind of for anybody that might be joining us a little bit late.
Yeah. So for me, one of the proofs, and I can't absolutely prove 100%, both scientifically and metaphysically. However, I can't prove that there's a God, but I can give you questions and I can answer certain things that hopefully would challenge you to think about the probability of a God that exists, that's personal and that loves you. And so for me, one of the great mysteries is why do I care about right and wrong, and why do I care about people, and where does that come from? And it's my belief it comes from God. He created you to be this way. And again, where we were stamped, we were imprinted by God, we were made in God's image, it says in Genesis. And so if I have that in me, it has to come from somewhere. And, if you want, you could say it comes from my parents, it comes from good living, it comes from the university I attended, those kinds of things. But inherently, I think people and universities and organizations are broken and flawed in terms of absolute righteousness. I would rather say, and it makes more sense to say, that my right and wrong view and my desire to live a moral life comes from outside of myself, from a perfect standard, not from another human being or another philosopher or another idea, because inherently we're selfish and wrong, and we'll do what's right for ourselves versus what's right for others. So just the sheer fact that these tensions exist, good and evil and those kinds of things, they had to come from somewhere. And for me, it's most likely they came from the God that created us. He wanted us to understand and have a free will and learn what was good and what was not. A corollary would also be, I don't want to worship a God that says everything's the same. I mean, I get this all the time. It doesn't matter what you believe, you're going to end up in heaven and you're going to be with God. And I would just really, really beg to differ. Respectfully, I would beg to differ, because I don't want to worship a God that says evil is good or good is evil, and that there's no distinctions in right and wrong. It may be confusing and we may not think it's fair all the time, but to have an ultimate standard and one way to know the God that created us, and that's through his son, Jesus Christ, I think is how God loves us. He doesn't leave us in the dark. He's not amorphous from the standpoint of he believes in absolutely everything. Everything's okay. It's not okay. I mean, you know this in personal experience. Again, that's that image of God thing. Certain behavior is not okay, and you're going to be pretty unpopular if you say certain things are okay. But again, though, you almost have to push yourself to that logical end. If there's no morality, if there's no God, no morality, then everything's okay. And I just don't want to live in a world like that. And I don't think that's how God created us. So in general, that's kind of what we were talking about.
Kelly Canny just joined us and
Hey, Kelly.
wishing us some love. Hi, Kelly. How are you holding up with all your kiddos at home? So let's say that someone comes to this realization. They're like, okay, I'm tracking you. All right. So there's morality for a reason. There's a perfect God. But like, what about that now? Like, what do we do now about that? Okay, I can agree with what you're saying. That's right. I wouldn't want to, serve a God that says everything's okay, because if you say everything's okay, like you said, that's a pretty scary world we'd be living in. So what kind of, like, what does that mean for someone that this is totally new for, or they're just like, all right, I'm tracking you, but then what?
Yeah, well, my hope would be that when you realize that you've got something inside of you that didn't come from you, that you would want to know the God that put that there and learn more about who he is. Again, you have an autonomous soul and you have free will. He created you that way. And so you could say, all right, I get it. There's morality. I don't believe it came from God, but it came from somewhere. But I still want to live independently of that morality. I want to do what I want to do. And that's fine. It's not good. That's not how God created you to live. And I believe it's a pathway for struggle and pain in this life to try to do everything on your own. But if you're convinced that God gave you this sense of moral conscience, I would want to know more about him. That would be my logical next step. So who is he? And that's where the Bible comes in. That's where, going to church, listening to good speakers, those kinds of things really helps. Reading good books that talk about some of these issues. I would just want to know more. One way you can actually know more is I have a friend that we support here at church. His name's Jim Walton, and he lives in the Chicago area, but he's got a ministry called Third Choice. Thirdchoice.org is his website, and he's written books. He's a really smart guy, way smarter than I am, and he runs internet dialogues between people, and he records the dialogue in terms of people asking questions, what his answers would be, and what other questions they might ask. And so you might want to check out the website. It's very, very helpful. If you wanted to talk more about this specific issue or others, obviously we'd be glad to help you here, but you could also anonymously log in and fire away at a guy that's pretty bright and see what he has to say about these things and who this God is that's given us this conscience, this morality, this desire to have purpose in life.
That's awesome. I just went in and linked the thirdchoice.org, and so you can click on that and check that out later. It's both on Facebook and on YouTube, so it should be in the comments there, so you can see that.
That's great.
Yeah. Just click out of here. Well, let's see who else is joining us. So we've got Kelly again saying hi. I should teach you how to say something in Portuguese for our Brazilian viewers.
Sure.
You could say oi.
Oi.
That's good. Bem-vindo.
Bem-vindo?
Yeah, that's like saying welcome.
Oh, bem-vindo.
And then you could say, my favorite. So I have a tagline I use at the end of all my videos.
Okay.
A paz do Senhor.
A paz do Senhor.
Uh-huh. And what do you think that means?
Is Senor like Mr. or man?
Mm-hmm.
So a paz to all men, I don't know.
A paz is peace.
Oh, peace.
And then do Senhor is like, it's how you would say Mr., but it's referring to God.
Okay.
A paz do Senhor. It's like the peace of the Lord.
That's cool.
The peace of the Lord be with you.
That's a nice phrase.
I say that at the end of all of my videos. Awesome. I'm just looking through to see who else is chatting with us. All right. Well, if anyone has any questions, you can either, if you're watching this live right now, you can comment below and we can answer those questions. Or if you're watching this later, you can go ahead and comment below and we'll kind of monitor those things and see if there's any unanswered questions that people have.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about the stuff that's sort of on your heart and on your mind, you know, because I can think sometimes I understand what your questions might be, but I'm a 56-year-old married man. It's a father and a grandfather, and I kind of relate to the world in one way, and I want to relate to all people. But so you gotta help me. You gotta help us. What's on your heart? What's bothering you about God, about faith, about the world? What should we weigh into and not weigh into? What's the most important thing? So
yeah,
we want to help you in that way.
56, huh?
I know. It's terrible.
It's not terrible.
It's ancient. My hair is thinning, and my boys, one's 23 and one's 19, and they've got this just like flowing, huge mane of hair. And
locks.
I once looked like that, but
did you?
No,
I need
no
to
more.
see. I need to see proof of that.
I showed my kids years ago a picture of Julie and I at our wedding. And we were so stick thin and looked really great. And one of my kids said, "Hey, Dad, what happened to you?"
Oh.
And I'm like, "Okay, you just wait till life catches up with you, buddy. Let's see how you look." But
yeah, on like Facebook, we have this time 5 years ago, things pop up. Here's your memory, and man,
it's amazing how people change.
Yeah, I'll see. Like, I hardly ever share pictures of our wedding because I was. It was a while ago, and I was, I had 3 less kids, and I was skinny, and so I never share those pictures because I'm like, yeah. I have had my kids be like, "Who's that?" That's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it doesn't happen too often. But
yeah, that's a bummer. They know who I am. I'm just a fatter version of what I was. So I'm still recognizable, apparently.
All right. Desa says, Pastor Derek, she heard your Portuguese. We really liked your pronunciation. Good job. You're a great teacher, Jillian. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Thanks, guys. I really need to study Portuguese more. I'm like plateauing. I'm on like the same level because I'm not actively learning. That's what happens.
The hard part for me in learning languages, this is totally aside, is having the courage to actually speak it out loud with somebody that knows the language, because it's just so intimidating.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, I already sound weird enough as it is in my own language, let alone like speaking another language, and it's just hard to have that courage just to jump in and practice it.
You have to put yourself in a position where no one's looking for you to be good at the language. Like, like I was at Dunkin' Donuts the other day, like at a gas station where Dunkin' Donuts was, and someone came in and was asking the person behind the counter, "Hey, do you have any plates?" And I don't know what they needed a plate for, but they needed a plate. And she kept asking, and he didn't understand, and so like no one was expecting me to know Portuguese, but you just kind of use what you have. So even if it wasn't good, I was like, "Você tem prato," and which I believe is correct for saying, "Do you have a plate?" And he was like, okay, no. But, so in terms of language, you learn what you can, and then you find yourself in a situation where no one's expecting you to be a language specialist, but you're kind of helping out by using what you have.
Right.
And that goes for any skill, I guess, like
yeah,
you don't have to be perfect at it.
It goes back to what we were talking about in terms of learning more about morality, learning more about God. We don't come fully equipped with a comprehensive revelation of who God is.
Right.
I mean, we've got access to it through Scripture and the Holy Spirit as He guides us and other people. But it takes time. It takes courage. It takes the ability to be vulnerable and ask questions and say, "I don't understand." Yeah. And all those kinds of things are hard at times. But there's great fruit in having the courage just to talk about stuff.
Well, John King has added, "It seems that with old age and cancer, the morale challenge to life has been lost, and I miss it. The only thing now I fear is a transparent honesty that might say something best left unsaid." I gotta read that again.
Yeah.
You're a smart guy, John. I've got to like put my smart cap on to track you better. "It seems that with old age and cancer, the moral challenge to life has been lost." Not morale. The moral challenge to life has been lost, and I miss it. The only thing now I fear is a transparent honesty that might say something best left unsaid.
I'm not sure totally what you're getting at, John, but for me, one of the things that is hard is when people speak honestly about something in my life that rings true. It rings so true that it hurts me. And I wish that might not have been revealed or whatever. It could also be sometimes the opposite. Sometimes we have so much candor and honesty, we hurt people with the way that we say it.
Yeah.
Versus being as relationally warm as we can be.
Yeah.
Either way, though, it's good.
Yeah.
It's good to think about.
Transparent honesty. Yeah, I have a hard time if something's what seems like a moral issue, or like you're a bad person if you believe this, or if you stand for this, then you must be, or if you believe this, then go ahead and unfriend me, or I'm going to block you. And it's hard for me. I think we talked about people pleasing a little bit earlier, and because I do struggle with like, I want everyone to like me. I don't want to be too controversial because I want to get along with everyone, and I love the feeling of someone liking me. It's hard for me to know when to speak up and when to not speak up.
Yeah.
And or when to be bold about something and when to hang back. And a lot of those type of issues, they come up more often than not, and I don't know if maybe I err on the side of like not getting into it because I don't want the drama, or choosing to hold back because even if I were to try to explain, it might not I don't know, might not come across right, or it might be lost.
Yeah, I think in some ways we and that might help public discourse, especially on controversial or significant issues. I think in some ways we try so hard to come up with a perfect way to say something that we end up not saying it at all. And what I would rather do is say, like, get it all out on the table. You say it, I'll believe the best in you. So you say whatever you want to say, even if it's like said wrong, but at least I understand where your heart is, and I'll throw my stuff out on the table, and then we'll kind of piece it together and not get mad at each other for saying it the wrong way, but just doing your best to say it and then discern after that. So sometimes I think it's better just to give people a chance just to talk. And
I think I think so much communication obviously is happening online right now.
right,
With comments and not even so much emails, but like on social media and stuff. And so it's kind of hard to we don't like if you make some big statement and I really feel compelled to say something or to give you another insight or something like that like, oh, I'm concerned about your views on this, have you considered this? There's not like a necessarily an understanding between like, hey, I'd like to comment on your post, but I would like you to assume positive, like
right,
that exchange doesn't happen or hardly ever happens. So
yeah,
that's why, like, I mean, even me, I kind of took a break from social media for a while because I'm like, there's so much that I'm passionate about or that I'd like to share or learn from, but the culture is kind of really tricky right now.
yeah. And that's where I try to give people the benefit of the doubt when
Right.
they text or when they email or when they write. Like I can't tell you how many times someone's emailed me, and my first response or feeling is why is this person so mad at me? And I'll follow up with them, and they're not mad at all. They just communicate sort of in like a super direct way or something, or they use all caps and I didn't know that means yelling or whatever. So I think if we give people the benefit of the doubt that they're just trying to say something, and then get a chance where we can talk about it either live on the phone, Zoom, in person, I think those are better than just exchanging words. Um, it's better. I mean, words are better than nothing. At least there's a dialogue going on, but it's a lot safer. Like I think people have like social media courage, and when they're in person, they wouldn't ever have the courage to say what they said, but they feel free to like totally get after you and me because there's no accountability or something. I think that's a problem.
Yeah.
I think if you can't say it in person, you probably shouldn't, especially say it through an email or something. I don't know.
So I'm laughing because if my friend Joanne is watching this, she's already thinking what I'm thinking. When I was teaching, there was this one year where I was really on it. I don't even remember all the dynamics, but there was just some weird dynamics. And as a teacher, you kind of have to pick and choose what you really advocate for, because if you're always complaining about everything, then nothing you complain about, it's like
You're not the fun person at the party.
yeah, you want to be the squeaky wheel about the right things, So if I'm advocating, if you're my student and you really need to get some services that you're not getting, I need to advocate for that. But there was this one year where I was just, I don't know, like I couldn't get FaceTime with people, so I'd just fire off these emails, and like my heart was like halvesies in the right spot. It was like, this student needs this service. I need to do this for them, and if I don't do it, then no one's gonna. So then there's like, I want to help them, but then I'm super prideful. But anyways, so my friend Joanne coined this term that I was launching grenades, because I'd write my email and then I'd just hit send, and it was like,
Yeah, as long as you were away from the shrapnel, whatever happened.
right, like whatever. I would be bolder, and there are times where like I do think it's wise to put things in writing sometimes. If you're like me, where you kind of don't always say what you have to say, sometimes sitting down and taking your time and writing it, not when you're emotional, but just sitting down and kind of putting your words together, it can be helpful.
Totally agree. Sure.
Like there are times even where if my husband and I are disagreeing on something, like us having time away and me being able to sit down and work out a text to fully express myself. If I'm not coming from a nasty place, it can be really helpful. But yeah, I don't launch grenades anymore. And she used to say, well, Jill, I need to check your email, but did you hit send? Don't hit send until I look over it.
That's a good friend.
And she is a good friend. I was just on a roll. You just get in those seasons of life where
I get it.
honestly, I was self-righteous, and I thought, like, I've got this moral compass and I know what's right for these kids. And there's a lot of that. We're all tempted to feel that way at times, and what we do with that and how we communicate
There's
is
a reason.
important.
You got to remember there's a reason why a lot of people think that Christians are bigoted and mean-spirited and arrogant and cornered to the truth or whatever, is because a lot of us act that way.
Yeah.
And we just got to be really careful not to do that, not to feed into that wrong perception. Like, it always drives me crazy. They get some Christian cloud hopper on the news that looks weird and says weird things and is very not intellectual and those kinds of things. And everybody goes, yep, they're those stupid Christians. Well, I feel bad for the cloud hopper, but that's not all of us, or
Yeah.
You know, we just got to, again, if we just somehow believe the best and start talking, I think it'd be better.
Yeah.
Sounds naive, but I'm naive at times.
It does sound a little nice, but you know, we need to have at one of these live streams. We've got to get someone that's like super different from us on these type of things.
Yeah, I
You know,
agree.
because I mean, I love like the Venn diagram of you and me. It's like, oh, I'm in a circle right now too. This is perfect for Venn diagrams. But like, you know, we have some of these things that are very much the same. Like, you know, like, yeah, I mean, if everybody just starts, can you just be nice? Can you just be normal?
Right.
Can you just believe the best in people? Come on, guys. So we need someone at some point, maybe in the comments or next week, like, you know,
Yeah.
get someone to chime in that's like, all right, guys, you're being naive. You need to be bolder. You need to, because,
Sure.
you know, even the way that we are isn't necessarily right, but approaching people in love is right.
Yeah.
And assuming positive motives is, is probably pretty good to do, unless, you know, there's times where you can't assume,
Right.
you know, where you
Well,
have to
and-
discern too.
Well, and to respect people and give them credit for the things that they're doing really well. I mean,
Yeah.
I've actually had people get mad at me that I have read Christopher Hitchens. He's an atheist. You know, he's a pig. Quit listening to him. But I have a real problem with that because he was incredibly bright. He's one of the best writers I've ever read. Super intellectual. Yeah, he was passionate and could get pretty mean spirited at times, but it helped me understand how he and other atheists think.
Yeah.
And they deserve respect for that. I mean, the guy could probably argue if he was still alive, could argue circles around me, and that doesn't make him right just because he's super smart. But I at least give him credit for that because he was incredible.
Yeah. We've got a question here. In teaching moral principles, is the content different for teens than, say, for grandma?
I would say it's different probably in how the application of it and how it applies. So like if the moral principle is love others as better than you love yourself, you know, and serve others, those kinds of things, the application of it and how it plays out and the comprehensive understanding of it would be different for a teen, a child, you know, versus a grandma. You know, I've got grandkids living in my house, and being nice and kind and serving others just till I go, it just goes over their heads. They want what they want. You got my toy. So I break it down from the standpoint of, can you just share a toy? Can we like sit together and play together and not hit each other with the toy or whatever, you know? So, and then for grandparents, sometimes we go through life that it kind of backs up on us and it colors how we look at things. You know, like I don't want to end up being like a grouchy, mean cynic. If I turn out that way, you guys got to stick me
I'll let you
somewhere.
know. Yeah.
Put me somewhere so I don't bother people. I just don't want to be mean and cranky and weird when I get old. But
Ornery.
sometimes you can't help it because you're just sad and you're alone, and so that can color your perception and application of what truth is. So the truth is the same, but it just relates and applies differently based upon who you are and where you're at.
That's a really good way to say it.
Thanks.
Let's see. John says that I read Sam Harris, one of the four horsemen of atheism, The Moral Landscape. Pastor, I am not offended that you read Hitchens.
Thanks, Sean. I also read a lot of literature because I think you can learn a lot culturally and historically, and just have fun reading fiction and literature. I'm a big, Mark Twain fan, those kinds of things. So
That's good. All right. Well, we're coming up on our hour, so I'm gonna put your contact information on the screen, and then if you want to just.
yeah, really appreciate you guys tuning in. I know you could do a lot of other things, and your time's valuable. But thanks for indulging us a little bit here. Let us know how we can help you with anything. Don't hesitate to reach out. And again, we might not always know exactly how to answer a question, but we'll sure try, and we'll continue to promote the good dialogue and those kinds of things. So I hope you're safe. Hope you stay well. We look forward to being with you, episode number 4 next week. And just take care of yourself.
We got one more thing.
Okay.
One more comment. Kristen just added. She said, "I've found the approach for talking to grandma has to be started and finished with respect to keep their attention, whereas a teenager is much more about finding things in common."
Yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah.
That's probably why there's different people that work with different age groups, because we're not all sort of gifted in every area. I'd like to be, but I don't know. It's hard. Teenagers kind of bug me sometimes.
Do they?
Overall, I really, really like them. But.
Yeah. Sometimes these kids, these crazy kids. I have found myself as a 36-year-old woman, being like, oh, kids these days. And like, and as soon as I say stuff like that, I'm like, is that really coming out of my mouth right now?
It happens.
When I hated feeling judged by adults, I hated that. You don't know me, and it would make me be rebellious because I was like, let me show you.
Yeah, there's aspects. I love my parents, but there's aspects of who they are in parenting that wasn't perfect, and I always swore I'd never do that to my kids, but it's amazing. I don't know if it's gene pool or environmental conditioning or something, but I'll say something and you go, man, it's just like my mom.
Where
did that come from?
That was, yeah. Pastor and Jillian, Annabelle says hi. Let's say hi to Annabelle.
Hey, Annabelle.
Hi.
It's good to see you. Wish I could see you, but it's good that you're here.
That's awesome.
So thanks again, you guys.
Yeah.
And we'll look forward to seeing you again next week, okay? Bye-bye.
See you next time.
See you.